everyone, my name is Daria. Welcome back to my channel. Over the last few months, we have witnessed the formation of a new subgenre of booktube, if you will, entitled I Read Blank Celebrities' Favorite Books. It's a subgenre that I have been particularly interested in, but have yet to dabble in creatively. But that ends today, my friends. And who is this person, you may ask? Who is the celeb with which I will make my debut into this subgenre of booktube? None other than Ben Barnes himself, the man who has literally haunted me my entire life. As Prince Caspian, this man literally owned my 10-year-old ass. And then, about a decade on, he came back to claim his property by playing the Darkling. And I know that other people have probably moved on, but I'm still here on my Shadow and Bone, Darklina bullshit. So Ben actually did an interview with Penguin, which is where I will be collecting my information for this vlog. In the article, he talks a lot about recent faves like Normal People. God bless this man's taste. But his favorite books include Birdsong by Sebastian Faulks, One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich by Alexander Solzhenitsyn. It's something Russian. Atonement by Ian McEwan. Then we have A Promised Land by Barack Obama, Far from the Madding Crowd by Thomas Hardy. I have watched the adaptation of this with Carey Mulligan. I have a feeling it's gonna be probably my favorite on this list, that's just my guess. And then we have the one book that I actually will not be reading, which is His Dark Materials by Philip Pullman. I've attempted to read those books previously. I've never made it past the first chapter. I am so excited for this because I know that Ben Barnes has such an appreciation for words, literature, storytelling, and as someone who shares those same interests, I'm very excited to see what his favorites have in store for me. So let's go ahead and talk about One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich. But before we do that, let me show off the fit, okay? Let's hear it for the shirt, everybody. Can we hear it for the shirt? Yes, thank you, thank you. So the title of this Russian novella is pretty self-explanatory. We're just following this guy for one day in his life, getting a glimpse into what he does, what he goes through, because there is the special circumstance that he is working in a labor camp. I don't even want to say working. He's being tortured, basically. It's hard to describe the plot of the book because it's made up of so many, like, ruminations and, like, theoretical thinkings in Ivan's mind, and also lots of, like, seemingly small moments that actually have a really profound impact on Ivan. The author was able to take these, like, really mundane, seemingly everyday occurrences and things in our lives and just create an entire narrative around it. Like, for example, there is this running thing about hunger and getting to eat bread, and Ivan is constantly trying to, like, conserve little bits of food so that he has energy to work in this camp, because if he doesn't keep up, he will be punished, and if he is punished, it's very possible that he could just die. It was also really interesting to see Ivan interact with the other prisoners and see these other perspectives on this similar situation that they were all in. For example, there's one dude who was like hella religious. Yes, I understand the irony in saying hella followed by the word religious. But anyway, he's hella religious. I said it again. Ivan and him have this really interesting conversation about, like, the existence of God, the existence of heaven and hell, and how they view this time that they are spending in this labor camp. They have very juxtaposed ideas of what it means. It was very fascinating. If someone were to pick up this novella without an understanding, even just a small understanding of the historical context regarding Stalin and his crimes and repressions, I feel like it might be harder to, like, connect with the material or even to really understand, like, what's going on in the book. I know I had to pause at some points and do, like, a quick Google search. And I think that while this is not going to be, like, my new favorite piece of literature, I think I can definitely appreciate it, especially given the fact that its publication is something of a marvel in itself. So that was the shortest thing that I'm going to be reading for this video. And the next thing I'm going to pick up is Thomas Hardy's Far from the Madding Crowd. I have watched the film, the one with Carey Mulligan, and that super cute, like, tall blonde dude, I don't know his name. And I enjoyed it. I think that Carey Mulligan is amazing in any role that she plays. She was especially amazing in that role. And it's going to be interesting reading this because it'll be one of the few occasions where I've watched the film or adaptation before having read the book. I think it might be helpful in the fact that I can, like, picture the characters as the actors, so it might be easier to follow in that way. But then again, it is a spoiler. Like, I know what happens in this, so let me just open this up and give it a whiff. Yeah, it smells good. I had a feeling it smelled good, and it does. It smells good. Was that a weird thing to do? People smell, you guys smell your books, right? Right? That's not weird. It's not weird. It's not. Is it? So I am about like 50% done with Far From the Madding Crowd, and so far, I'm really enjoying it. I really like Thomas Hardy's writing style. He does this thing where every time he introduces a new character, he'll have a chapter entirely dedicated to introducing them. He'll talk about their strengths, their weaknesses, how they perceive themselves, how other people perceive them, and especially when he's describing their faults. It's very clever, it's very witty. It's also interesting that we have our main, like, female character, and she's got, like, 3 suitors, one of which has only really just been introduced. And all of them could offer her like certain things, and then all of them have their own drawbacks, whether it's they don't have a lot of money or just like personally they don't really seem like the right match for her. This is the first time I've ever done the like reading someone's favorites thing, whether it's a celebrity or another booktuber. And I find that I'm constantly questioning like, why is this book in particular one of Benjamin's favorites? Why? Because I personally think for something to be someone's favorite book, to be one of their favorite stories, it has to be beyond just like the plot and the writing. There has to be something else, some kind of like special ingredient X that makes the book one of your favorites. I think I'm also particularly interested because I know that Ben has such an appreciation for words and language. In his interviews talking about his portrayal of the Darkling throughout his press run for Shadow and Bone, you could just tell how much of an appreciation and understanding he had of the characters and how he constantly like referred back to the books. I know he even mentioned at one point that he had like a list of Darkling quotes that he kept going back to and even wanted to include in the show. Like, this is a guy who appreciates literature, who appreciates words. And so I want to know, like, what about the language in this book draws him in? Like, what's his favorite quote from this book? So I finished it, and the only thing I can possibly think to say right now is that Sergeant Troy has made it onto my fictional character shit list. And he's up there. Oh boy, is he up there. I think maybe only like George Wickham beats him. What a fucking prick. I hate that. Ooh! I'm gonna get angry just thinking about it. I'm gonna get angry just thinking about it. And as much as I hated that man, it also couldn't compare to how annoyed I was with, oh, I'm gonna fuck up her name, Bathsheba. What the fuck was she thinking? Like, what is attractive about that man? Nothing. Especially when you have to compare him with Gabriel motherfucking Oak. Like, I don't know what Bathsheba was smoking, what she was on, but I don't want any part of it if it makes you that delusional. It's so hard for me to like sum up my reading experience because holy God, the things that happened in this book pissed me off so much. They had me on the edge of my fucking seat. The drama was on another level. I kept turning the page wanting to know like what the hell was gonna happen next. If there was like a major theme that I could pull from this novel, it would be unrequited love. Like literally everybody is in love with someone who loves someone else. I don't know what Thomas Hardy was doing, but he was just like, let me just make everybody miserable. And you know what? Props to him because he created some really high quality drama out of all that misery. So I have to say that I'm torn on Bathsheba's character. I think it would be really interesting to read essays and literary criticisms about her character, especially related to feminism. Like, is she a feminist character? Is she not? I don't know. This book did a wonderful job balancing humor and darkness. I just really liked it. I definitely want to read it again. And like I said, read some like criticism, some essays, just like hop onto JSTOR and find some things to read about it. It's definitely one that I'm going to be thinking about. I think I can easily say 4 stars, maybe even more. Let's see how I feel in like a few days. Oh man, oh man. I really feel like a husk of a person right now. I feel like someone came in with one of those like ice cream scooper spoons and just carved out all of my insides and then threw it against the wall. So long story short, I finished reading Atonement and I'm going to need Ben Barnes to sponsor my next month. Actually, you know what? Make it 2 months of therapy appointments because what the actual fuck was that, sir? That's one of your favorite books? That is a book that you could reread multiple times? I don't think so. I don't think so. How am I supposed to move on? How am I supposed to read something else now? What am I supposed to do? And you know what's so funny is, like, I have seen the movie. I've seen the movie. Maybe it's because by reading the book, I am just more invested in these characters and I just know a lot more about them and their inner self being inside their minds. It just hit me so much harder. There are like two types of sad books for me. There's the first type of sad book that like makes me cry. And like, yes, obviously those are sad. Like, my tear ducts are flowing. Obviously I'm sad. But the second kind of sad book is way worse for me. And that is the book that, like I previously described with my ice cream scoop analogy, like, I feel empty. I feel like my stomach has dropped through my asshole. I feel like I have no heart left. I feel like I feel numb. And at the same time, I feel everything. And that's arguably way worse. Like, when I cry about a book, like, I cry about it, I move on from the experience. But this is something else entirely. I don't know what to do. I had to sit on the floor for this one. So for those of you who have never heard of this book and who still want to read it and don't want to hear any spoilers, the basic summary goes something like this. The story follows a young girl named Bryony who is about 13 years old, and during this one summer, she witnesses some things going on between her older sister Cecilia and their father's ward named Robbie. And Bryony ends up misinterpreting and misreading a lot of things going on between Robbie and Cecilia, and because of that, it leads her to tell a lie, to commit a crime that we basically see the ramifications of throughout the rest of the book. So the first half of the book is focused on what led to that lie. We see from a lot of different POVs of characters, Bryony, Cecilia, Robbie, Cecilia and Bryony's mother, and then the rest of the book is about, you know, the consequences of what went down and Bryony's lie and its impact on her and Cecilia and Robbie in particular. Let me just start off by saying that Bryony is one of the most fascinating main characters I've ever read about. Regardless of how you feel about her, and I know that people have strong feelings about that girl, I really think that this novel could not have been written. It could not be as good as it is if we weren't largely following Bryony. I think this book is such an interesting exploration of mistakes, lies, the ignorance of childhood. Like the title says, like whether it is even possible to attain atonement, alliteration, to gain forgiveness for something, and what you must do in order to be worthy or even try to be worthy of that forgiveness. And it's interesting because our main character largely fails in that regard over and over and over again. And that's like the crux of this book. And the one compliment, I think the highest compliment I can give it, is that it's written by a man, and yet the sex scenes didn't bother me. Like, seriously, that's very high praise. I think everyone has read those ridiculous Twitter threads of men describing women and their bodies in fiction, and it's absolutely ridiculous. And I did not feel that way with this book. Like, it was cute. I'm not gonna say it was hot, but it was cute. I didn't mind it. So now let's talk spoilers, my friends. I don't have any like definitive opinions about this book. I just have a lot of questions. And to me, that's such an exciting thing. Like, to leave a book still wondering, still pondering, wanting to go back and re-examine certain passages and see if there's something that I missed. Like, that is the mark of a really good book. That is the mark of a potential new favorite book of all time. I think it is pretty much widely accepted by a lot of readers and viewers of the movie that Bryony sucks, that she is like the worst character, everybody hates her. And I'm gonna say something that might be slightly controversial. At no point in the book did I ever really like despise her. I think it was more just like disappointment. I don't know what it is. I think that I do see a bit of myself in her. She has this sort of superiority about her. Like, she looks at the world around her as if it's a story unfolding and that she is like the author of the story. She is the one who knows everything. She knows more than everyone else. She's going to be the savior, the hero, and everyone will be thankful to her in the end. And it's so misguided. It's also a combination of the fact that she is just ignorant about sex. She's ignorant about desire and relationships. But despite all that, despite the fact that she is a girl of a higher class, which means that she is going to be wholly ignorant of a lot of things regarding sex especially, the fact that she has such a wild imagination, the fact that she has this almost superiority complex, the fact that she thinks that she knows everything about everything, all of that aside, like, not all of us do the things that Bryony did. Not all of us accuse a man of rape without actually knowing if he was the one who did it. Not all of us do that. And in that sense, there's really nothing to be said, but at the same time, I don't know why I can't hate her for it. I don't know, like, maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe she doesn't deserve sympathy, but, and it's so frustrating because there was one quote where she talked about Robbie and how someone who is seemingly so kind, so gentlemanly, can actually be like a wolf in sheep's clothing. And she's exactly describing the actual piece of shit, the actual rapist, Paul Marshall. But she's inflicting that identity onto Robbie. It's so fucked up, that's what it is. It's so fucked up. I don't know what Ian McEwan was on when he wrote this. I don't know who put him up to this shit, but it's sick. And then the book goes on, and you get to that final part where Lola and Paul are just living their lives. They're humanitarians, they're socialites, everybody loves them and thinks that they're such great people. Paul is such a piece of shit. Ugh, disgusting. The fact that he married her, probably, most definitely because, like, he wanted to keep her quiet, and just, ugh. Part of me does kind of feel bad for Lola, because she's probably, like, groomed. It's so shitty, because Lola and Paul get to just live their fucking lives, and Robbie and Cecilia died without ever getting to really be together. They both lost everything. Like, individually, they both lost so much. Like, Robbie he had such a promising future, and he was so ambitious and so driven. And he really felt like that family gave a shit about him. And Cecilia, she lost her whole family because of this. Like, I think that she made the right decision, and like, but it's horrible. It's still a really hard decision to make and a really hard thing to live through, to be completely cut off from your family. So individually and together, they both lost so much, and they were the ones who suffered the most, even though they didn't deserve it. And of course, that's the tragedy, isn't it? I know a lot of readers just despise Bryony for telling that lie. And of course, they're absolutely right too. But I think for me, what's worse is that when she got older and when she realized that she'd done wrong, she was too much of a coward to actually do anything about it. The fact that she wrote this fantasy happy ending for Robbie and Cecilia in her novel almost just seemed like another cover-up. Like, in the book, she said that she wrote that scene not to, like, alleviate her guilt, because she wrote it in such a way that they did not forgive her, that they did not care about her, that they wanted her out of their lives. So in that sense, I don't think that she was, like, absolving herself. But then also, isn't it just, like, another lie? Like, you're just continuing to lie. But then she also talks about the fact that, like, when people read this book, they're not gonna care. Like, 50 years from now, no one's gonna look at the book and care about whether or not it's the truth. They're gonna care about the story, and they want a happy ending. So she gave it to them. I don't know, like, it's just, ultimately, it never would have mattered what she did, because there's no way to fix it. Part of me thinks that there's nothing she could have said or done to make up for what she did, but then at the same time, I'm angry at her for not trying, for not having the guts to actually go out there and try to make it better, to confront them, to sort of put her hands up and say that she did wrong. I don't know, I feel like this is definitely a book that you could debate about for hours and hours on end. Part of me wants to, like, reread it, but then another part of me never even wants to think about it again. I honestly don't know what to do. Like, do I continue with the challenge? Do I give up and go on bed rest? This book has me seriously just like, why am I doing this? Ben Barnes, what the fuck? Once again, sir, I am asking you, what the fuck? Okay, Mr. Barnes, you and I need to have a talk, because for some reason, all of the books that you love always have, like, really depressing love stories at the center of them. Like, it's always tragic love stories set against the backdrop of some world war. And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of the pain. I'm tired of things never going the way that I want them to. I'm just tired. I'm emotionally drained. I give up. So in case it wasn't already obvious, I finished reading Birdsong. I blew through this one really, really quickly, even though it's not a light read and it's not a short novel at all. There were so many moments where I wanted to stop and give you guys an update, but at the same time, every time I did stop, I was like, what if there's something even more interesting around the corner and I'll miss it and I won't be able to talk about it. So it ended up that I just finished it, and now I'm here to tell you about my reading experience. So in the book, we are flipping backward and forward between two different generations of the same family. We have Stephen, and then we have his granddaughter, Elizabeth. We follow Stephen in the early 1910s when he is meeting and falling in love with a married woman in France. And then we follow him throughout his service in World War I. At the same time, we are flipping back to Elizabeth's timeline in like the late 1970s, and she is also having an affair with a married man. And Elizabeth is just kind of not really sure what she wants to do with her life. She feels like there's something missing, and one day she decides that she's going to try to find out as much as she can about her grandfather, Stephen, and his service in the First World War. And it's very interesting, especially when it comes to the experiences of war, because we are right there with Stephen as he is seeing these men literally get blown to pieces. I cannot tell you how descriptive some of the imagery was. It was truly horrific. And then we'll flip to Elizabeth, who is just reading about, you know, data. This many people died at this battle, and this many people went missing in this trench. And it's very much removed and like desensitized information that we're getting. So it's interesting to sort of see that juxtaposition in the two different POVs and generations that we're reading. Definitely the most interesting portion of this book is that huge chunk where Stephen is in the war. We watch him embark on this affair with this married woman, and she ultimately leaves him while being pregnant with his child and not letting him know. And because of that, he's just very jaded, very bitter. He always had this kind of like selfish streak, and now it's like turned up to the nth degree. He really is just very cynical, and obviously being in this war, seeing what other people are doing to one another, seeing death and destruction on this mass scale, it really doesn't help him. He has like zero faith in the goodness of others. He's basically just there to kill his enemies, and that's pretty much the only thing that he's living for. I don't want to give away too much, but there are two deaths that occur during this war that really shake Stephen and influence him, and I think also really impacts the reader. I honestly just cared so much more about his relationships with other people in the army during wartime than I ever did about his relationship with that married woman. And I actually really like how that relationship was handled. He reconnects with her eventually. I like how it was handled. I won't give away too much, but I think that it was realistic. If I were to compare Birdsong and Atonement, because they do have some overlap in terms of themes, war, love, tragedy, trauma, etc., I would say when it comes to Atonement, there's more of a focus on the tragic love story than there is World War II. Whereas in this book, Birdsong, I would say there's more of a focus on the war and its impacts on individual people and England as a country than the love story. I can't really say like which one I preferred more. I think that they both accomplished what they wanted to. I really enjoyed it. It definitely wasn't what I thought it was going to be when I first started reading it. I thought it was going to be all about the love story, all about the romance, and it really wasn't. And I think I enjoyed the story all the better because of it. I also have to say that the book is just very well written. I was just so engulfed by the prose. It's descriptive, but also like to the point, if that makes sense. I just admire any author that can do that, that can tell you a story so concisely, but also do it in a way that captures your attention and just leaves you in awe. And I think this book really did that. So after about 29 hours of audio listening, I am done with A Promised Land and officially done with this challenge. This book was honestly really revealing for me, especially because I came of age with Barack Obama and his presidencies. I believe I was about 9 or 10 years old when he was first inaugurated, so he was kind of the president of my childhood and my adolescence. I remember on the day of Obama's inauguration, my elementary school teacher wheeled in a TV and we spent the entire morning watching him get sworn in. And because I was so young during his first term in particular, a lot of the things that he accomplished, a lot of the big, important economic, political, and social events that occurred during his presidency, a lot of it went over my head. I knew about the recession and the BP oil spill in very vague terms. So it was very interesting to revisit those events and get to see them through the president's eyes, through the eyes of the person who was directly involved in trying to solve these problems. And reading this book as a 22-year-old now, I could appreciate a lot of the nuances and behind-the-scenes struggles that Obama was going through. There was one point in the book where Obama talked about how, as a president, he felt very stifled, that he couldn't express his true and honest opinion like he could have if he was just a regular citizen. But here in this book, he is actually able to tell his full, unfiltered thoughts. He's able to vent his frustrations in a way he was never really able to do before. And it was just so fascinating to read about the inner workings of the White House and the staff and how decisions were made, compromises were made, the way that there was infighting between the Republicans and the Democrats, the push and pull. It was so fascinating, so interesting, and so frustrating at some points, unbelievably frustrating. And it was very, how do I say this, like melancholic, because there were quite a few times where Obama would sort of make references to our current political climate. There were little inklings of what was to come in the future that he could see, even at the start of his presidency. The memoir starts off, and of course we learn about Obama's childhood and eventually his involvement in local government and politics, his run for senator, and then his campaign for president. And we go all the way up until the year 2011 when he executes Osama bin Laden. So I'm pretty sure that Obama must have more memoirs to come out. Like, this is a 700-page book and they only got to like 2011. There needs to be more. Like, they didn't even get into his second term. The memoir was just so good because Barack Obama is like a natural storyteller. Yes, the material that he has is interesting enough, like getting to peek behind the curtain and see what happens in the White House, how decisions are made, but the way that he tells these anecdotes, these stories, these truths about what he went through, his experiences, it's absolutely enthralling. And of course, you know, Barack Obama, he has his biases. He's going to tell things from his POV. His own politics and ideologies are going to color and impact the way that he talks about certain people, certain events, certain decisions that he made. But overall, I think it was just a really good read and a big eye-opener for me as well. So here we are. We have reached the end of this challenge. I have read all of Ben Barnes's favorite books except for his Dark Materials, which I don't think I'm ever gonna read in my entire life. Sorry, Ben. And I have to say, this was such a successful challenge. I enjoyed every single book that I read, and in fact, I more than enjoyed these books. Far from the Madding Crowd, Atonement, A Promised Land, like, those are some standout favorites. I think some of my favorites that I've read all year so far. Birdsong, while not like an astounding new favorite, I definitely did enjoy it, and it was poetic. It was beautifully written. And One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich, like, I'm not gonna rave about that one. I would say it's like my least favorite of all the ones that I read, but I'm still not like disappointed. I don't think it was like a waste of time reading that. I definitely want to do something like this again. I need to be on the lookout for another celebrity like Ben who has similar tastes to me. If you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know if you guys have read any of these books and whether or not they are some of your faves as well. If you want to find me or follow me anywhere else on social media, all the links will be down below. I love you all very dearly, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye!